Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. My name is Bill Lester. I'm with University of Florida Extension Service here in Hernando County. And joining me today are my two regular co-hosts, Colby Pitts, who is our Hernando County Florida Friendly Landscape Coordinator. Good morning, Colby.
Good morning.
Nice background. It looks peaceful.
Yeah,
I
it
like
does
peaceful.
look peaceful. I wish I was there.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of here, but we won't dwell on that. And my other regular co-host, Bernie, who is one of our Master Gardener volunteers. Good morning, Bernie. How you doing?
Good morning, doctor, and I'm doing fine.
Okay. Now, everybody, we are here for you. So we are here to answer your questions, take your comments, take your, if you need advice for something, if you want to discuss, whether it be water or trees or whatever it might be, just go ahead and put that in the comments and we'll take it from there. I see we have at least a few people on here with us. So, Alessandra, good morning. How are you? I believe that you were on my vegetable gardening basics class yesterday, which got a pretty good turnout. And it's raining there. Let's see. It's not raining here. It is kind of cloudy though outside. It rained. It was raining first thing this morning when I got up, which is kind of strange.
Mm-hmm.
And good morning to HOC Family TV. And they have a question. They just bought a begonia from Lowe's because of the pretty polka dots. Do you think it will be okay? In what sense? If you mean that it will grow well and do well, with any plant that you purchase, I would think that you start with a label. And even though the label doesn't give you a lot of information and maybe not even the best information, it gives you an idea of how much light the plant likes. Does it need full sun, full shade, somewhere in between? And I would think that if you grow it in a container, keep it evenly watered, not overwatered, because everybody loves to overwater houseplants for some reason. So don't do that. And if you put it outside in a very, very shady spot, this time of year it should do very, very well. And it says, okay, in the sense of yes, is it okay for this area? Yes, I mean, kept as a houseplant, it should do just fine. And they enjoyed walking through their sand spur free yard today. So happy. So hopefully it was our advice
Mm-hmm.
that
I remember this one. We
okay.
went in depth about sand spurs for a while.
Okay, well, that's a good success story. Hopefully one of my superiors is on here today and watching.
Yeah.
And label is the law.
Oh my goodness.
We don't really mean, I know somebody's been listening.
Yeah.
Wow. The label on a pesticide is the law. The little label that comes in a pot for a new plant is just a suggestion. And, it's usually accurate. But if you have the name, especially the scientific name of that plant, you could look it up online and learn a lot more about its requirements, its potential problems, diseases, insects, whatever that might be. And that's going to help give you a lot more information on it. And Teresa is here today in the background sharing a beginner's guide to begonias, which is definitely going to be a help.
I saw one of those
on here this morning. Good morning, Bassem.
Good morning. I saw one of those. But one of the old. I had some question about begonias, and there was one of the old IFAS articles where it's like there's no graphics, it's just a white background with Times New Roman, and I was like, it was dense, but I was like, man, that's probably a really good. It was a lot. I was like, I bet this is a really good repository of information. Maybe not presented in the most pretty way, but it'll get the job done.
Yeah, if you're looking for information, it's a good place to look, and it all depends on how detailed you're shooting for. Got a question for Bernie here. Lisa wants to know, why is my jade plant dropping its leaves?
I would tend to think overwater. That's probably the most common thing, but depends. If it's potted and it hasn't, and it's 5 years old, boy, does it need to be repotted. That's one of those things I need little more information. But most of the time, what happens uh, is they either get overwatered or they stay in soil that develops a lot of salt and it starts deteriorating the plant. So uh, I would almost recommend repotting right off the bat.
Yeah, and I know a lot of times with houseplants, people will keep giving it a little bit of water, a little bit every day. I've heard every day from some people, every couple days or whatever. With any plant, what works best is to take it and just thoroughly water it. But what we have to do with our couple of house plants, put it in the kitchen sink, water it really, really, really well, totally soak it, let it drain, and then let it completely dry again before you water it. So you're not watering it every day or every other day. It's maybe every week, all depending on the plant, how much water is taken up, um, how big the pot is in relation to the roots. The bigger the plant and the fuller the pot is with roots, the more often it's going to need to be watered. But water it real thoroughly and then let it dry real thoroughly before you water it again.
One thing though is if you have a lot of sphagnum moss in the uh, potting soil and it dries completely, it is super difficult to get it going again. So uh, I almost recommend that you don't use sphagnum moss in house plants. It becomes a serious problem in maintaining the water. If you stick your finger in the pot and it's wet, you got too much water. And if it's totally dry, you don't have enough. So a good gardener learns that the feel of the finger is the key thing. As long as you can feel some moisture, but it's not wet, it's fine. If it's totally dry, it's a little too dry. So trying to, if you learn to acquire that feel, you're a better gardener. It's just one of those things. I have several house plants right by the door, and when I go out, uh, I'll check. I'll just stick my finger down in the soil and see what today's condition is, and sure makes a big difference because if you overwater or you underwater, the plant develops the same look.
Yeah.
And you end up never knowing what's wrong. But if you learn to tell whether it was too dry for a couple of days and that's causing the problem, or it was too wet for a couple of days and that's causing the problem, then you know the correction. But if you automatically water, that's not going to help your plants at all. Just throwing those things out.
Okay, if anybody has any questions, just go ahead and put them in the chat. I got a couple things for today. One, got a really nice email the other day. So this is a little something from Dr. Bill's email inbox. This comes from Stephen Lawrence, and he said, my son and I picked up some banana pups from you sometime last year in Brooksville. This was a part of one of our classes that we're doing, growing groceries. So the class includes an online class on the plant that we're discussing. In this case, it was bananas. And for the low price of $20, you could come by our nursery and get 3 small banana plants. And each one was about this big, really about this big. So they're pretty small when he picked them up last year. He said, I wanted to send you a couple pictures of those plants now at our house in Newport Richey. So he's a little bit south of us, so it's going to be a little bit warmer. Let me get down to here. So starting with a little tiny banana last year, that's what Stephen's bananas look like now. And One of them is even producing bananas, which is fantastic. We'd love to see that. So sometimes it works. I've never gotten bananas before. I've frequently had bananas growing in my yard, but what happens is every winter they get knocked back by freeze damage and either killed to the ground or at least knocked back. Then they grow back all summer. They get knocked back and forth. They never get big enough to make bananas. But this past winter, never got cold enough to damage them. So I never got a bit of cold damage, and they stopped growing during the winter, but then they took off again. And I have a banana. These are the blue Java ones, I believe. And the trunk is, oh my gosh, it's like this big around. It's huge and it's getting big. And I'm thinking, I'm probably going to get bananas off of that this year. So sometimes it works. Okay, we got a question about one of Bernie's favorites, avocados. So Family TV has an avocado plant. They have one that's about 4 feet tall right now in a pot, and they do make attractive potted houseplants. We're thinking to go ahead and put it in the soil. This information was from taking notes from a previous class. And to continue, avocado wants all-day sun, protected from cold so it isn't using all summer energy to heal. Is there anything else to keep in mind? Those points are good advice. Avocado does like full sun. Where do you live? Like what county or what town do you live in? Because that makes a big difference with avocados also. Hernando County is kind of at the edge of avocado world. South of here, they do well, and you're going to get avocados. North of here, they generally don't. I don't think. Oh, okay. They live in Wikiwachi.
Oh,
So you can get avocados here. Not easy. Bernie, any other advice you have for avocados here?
well, it's kind of a funny thing about avocados. I would recommend just planting it. I assume that he started the tree from seed. If he's got it in a pot and it's 4 years old, he understands all that. That there's so many variables in this. One in Wikiwachi area, he's probably got like an 80% chance the tree's going to do fine. So the tree, okay, yes, from seed. Okay, now it's going to take several more years before it actually produces fruit. It's not necessarily going to be the same fruit as the seed you started from. And avocado trees do a funny thing. If you plant them so they block afternoon sun, they start growing at an angle to get around whatever is blocking them. So if you had it at the front of the house and it was right by the corner of the house, it would grow to get full afternoon sun, and it's really a strange thing. I had one where I had a tree that blocked it in the afternoon, and I took the tree out, and the avocado tree straightened back up. It's an interesting phenomenon with avocado. The other thing is there is an insect that attacks the trees and kills the trees. So you've got probably a 30% chance, I would say, that you're going to lose the tree before it becomes productive. So, if you're really going to be upset if something happens to the tree, you probably should put it in a bigger pot and keep it potted and really try and protect it. But if you're at a point where it's time now to see if you can grow a fruit tree, this is the time to put it in the ground.
Yeah, and both of the publications that Teresa linked in the comments section are going to have information about that beetle. It's an invasive beetle that moved through Florida a couple years ago, has killed an awful lot of bay trees, which were a native tree that grows out in the forest and the woods, and also avocados because they're closely related, and can damage camphor trees, believe it or not, because they're in the same family. They're closely related also. Um, and it's become a major problem here in Florida.
What was interesting when that beetle first came through is it was attacking redbud trees, red bay trees,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody even knew we had red bay trees.
Yeah.
Then it actually moved almost in a straight line slowly down across the state, and you could see this line where they were moving, and uh, up in the next county north, up in Citrus County, all these trees are dead, and they turn as brown just basically overnight. So there were brown trees, and then a mile south in a month there were brown trees, and in another month there were brown trees, and had no idea how many red bays we had, but I live out in the eastern part of the county, and I would say that a good 5% of the wild trees were red bay. It was a very, very common tree, but it was just never noticed. And there would be patches where there would be a dozen of them, and bang! This thing really went quick. So, uh, and it only took two spores to kill a tree.
Yeah.
You got two spores from the beetle, and it was over. So.
Yeah, because this is a ambrosia beetle, and what they do is they come and they drill into your tree and they lay eggs, and the ambrosia beetle brings a fungus with it and inserts the fungus in the tree, and the beetle is just eating the fungus. It's not really eating the tree, it's eating the fungus that it brought with it. And the problem is that fungus will eventually plug up the plumbing in the tree and kill it. And all of a sudden, one day, it seems like one day your tree looks fine. The next day, all the leaves are brown, top to bottom, and they all hang on the tree. So a lot of times, leaf death and browning from top to bottom, and the leaves hanging for a time and not falling off right away is usually an indication of some type of ambrosia beetle. I saw one on a huge southern red oak, which you don't see very often. And I had to go look at it. And I pulled in the neighborhood and I'm looking at the street signs. It's like, okay, well, that's their street right there. And I look down and I was still a block away from the house. And I see this huge oak tree completely brown. Every single leaf was on it, and every single leaf was brown and hanging. I pulled up in front of their house and I started talking with them. And I'm looking down near the base of the tree, and there's sawdust all over the place. That usually means, definitely bark beetles, but usually ambrosia beetles. I look up, I see nothing but brown leaves. I look down, there's like maybe 3 leaves on the ground. So I said, I have some bad news for you. Your tree has expired, and there's nothing that we could do at this point. You're going to have it removed. Something happened. The tree got stressed out. It got attacked by beetles, and the beetles killed it. But you could see it a block away. It stood out in the neighborhood. So, hey, I got something else here to share with everybody. For everybody watching us, especially live, because this is going to happen very soon, we are going to have a special, basically flash sale on a certain type of fruit tree at our Master Gardener nursery. And let me hit my watch and let me show the address to our Master Gardener nursery here. That is them. And we have about 10 or so of Australian finger lime trees. You're thinking, well, what the heck is an Australian finger lime? This is a fruit tree. It is in the citrus family. They do not get citrus greening. So that disease that's such a problem with any other kind of citrus, oranges, lemons, limes, grapefruit, they're all susceptible to citrus greening. It's killed a lot of trees in the area. There are varieties that are coming on the market now that are resistant to greening, But if you've had a citrus tree in your yard over the last couple of years, it either has died from greening or unfortunately probably will die from greening one day. One day it's going to happen. But Australian finger limes don't get greening. Teresa, if you try Googling UF finger limes, look up the UF red finger limes because that's the variety we have here to show people like what the tree looks like and what the fruit looks like. The fruit looks really unusual. It's kind of oval shaped and it has little juicy vesicles inside of it. So it almost looks like if you cut open a pomegranate, I think what the seeds look like inside. Grows is native to Australia, can grow really well here in Florida. University of Florida is looking at can it be grown commercially for commercial growers to grow as a cash crop. You have to go to a really high-end restaurant to find it. You can't find them at a grocery store. Very few people have them producing in their backyards right now, but we have some for sale, and I believe that they are $30 each, and they're going to be available at our nursery. And I got one. I purchased one to put in my yard. So let me show you what mine looks like. That's the top, and that's the bottom. Let me get back here a little bit. Really nice looking tree, surprisingly large. We're all surprised at how large they are and how good they looked. One thing you need to keep in mind though, these trees have thorns. They have lots of thorns. They have big, sharp, pointy thorns right here. And they have a lot of thorns up in the crown also. So they look a little bit differently. I think this looks kind of like a boxwood, the small hedges that you might have in front of your house that you keep shaped into either a box or a ball or whatever. So small leaves, lots of thorns, lots of branches. Apparently, it turns into a fairly thick crown and has a very, very nice stalk here. Yeah, this thing's going to go in the soil in my backyard in the next day or two, and we'll see how it does. I'm hoping to have a nice crop of Australian finger limes one day. Not sure how long it takes. Cassie, Teresa put up some information here, and Lydia asks, on sale tomorrow? They are on sale Saturday at the nursery. Our Master Gardener nursery is open on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Today is Thursday because I'm here. So they're open on Saturday from 8:30 in the morning till 11. When we get further into the winter, they'll be open till noon. But right now it's still hot. And I see that Teresa put down links to a couple of different fact sheets here. Do they
Yeah,
keep?
the fruit kind of looks like a fat little sausage.
Yeah.
That shape. Yes, they keep the thorns.
Yeah, it stays thorny. It never goes unthorny, apparently. How tall can it grow? I'm not really sure. They don't grow really huge. I would think maybe naturally 10, 15 feet ish.
Yeah.
You would always want to keep it pruned a little bit shorter. You really don't want to let fruit trees get too huge because then you have issues with, well, how do I pick the fruit off the top? And then you're thinking, I'll just go get the ladder. And then bad things can happen. I can tell you that commercial fruit tree growers keep their trees deliberately smaller because they really don't want their workers up there on ladders a lot falling off, getting injured.
I mean, just think logically. It's easier. It's easier to pick pick fruit off shorter trees. Yeah.
Yeah, the trees that the university had at their research plot were in the 10 to 15 foot range.
Yeah.
Most of them were 10 to 12 feet, I would think.
Because they deliberately prune everything from citrus to pomegranates, peaches definitely. They keep peaches, plums, and nectarines short and very, very glass bowl shaped open. but they don't want huge, tall peach trees. You might think, well, the bigger you let them grow, the more fruit you're going to get. Not necessarily. And then, like I said, one day you're like, oh, I have beautiful fruit, and it's way up there. What do I do? We really don't recommend that people start jumping on ladders. And like I said, you can stop by our Master Garden Nursery this coming Saturday. You probably want to be there very early. We only have maybe 10 trees left for sale. So this is definitely first come, first serve. Whoever gets there first is going to be able to, purchase one. We will be getting them again. So don't worry. We're going to get a larger shipment of them in the not too distant future as soon as I can work out the details. And we'll have a class and we'll sell and we'll, take registration and orders for the trees. We'll do all that online. Right now, it's all being handled in person at the nursery. But we got like 10 trees that we need to sell and find happy homes for because they're going to grow better in your yard than they will at our nursery in the pot.
Yeah, nurseries open 8:30 to 11 during the summer.
Mm-hmm. And please, no pushing or shoving in line. Everybody be polite.
Yeah.
And so far, this is the first mention I've made of this. So, you know what? To show our appreciation to people who tune into us Thursday mornings, I'm not going to say anything more about these trees being available for sale for like a week or two. So you guys get first shot, first chance. I won't put it on Facebook or anywhere else. So
They'll be gone Saturday.
If you missed out this time, we will be getting more. They have two different varieties. The UF Red, which these are the UF Reds, and another variety. I mean, the tree looks the same. The fruit is shaped the same, but I think the color of the insides is different.
It's amazing, that those little beads seem to come in about 5 or 6 different colors. They're red, pink, green, clear. There's one of them that's got violet fruit. So, but they're kind of like the champagne of lime. If you like citrus fruit, this is probably one of the very, very top end citrus fruits.
And yes, I believe it's a UF Red because University of Florida helped to develop this variety. So over time, you can look forward to more varieties being released and mass produced and available for sale.
This is one of those things. There are other varieties available, but it's very important that you have the variety that matches your growing conditions. UF Red is the correct plant for our area. We had a gentleman that started a commercial grove here and had the wrong variety, had a South Florida variety, and they were damaged by just minor cold. Frost was enough to pretty much destroy a grove. So if you run into a tree someplace else, don't think that you can bring one in from Sarasota, for instance, and have it work well here. They are area specific.
Yet I know even with these, young trees should be protected from cold weather for the first couple years. After that, they're pretty cold tolerant here. Obviously, if we have one of those every 20-year freezes where it's going to get down to like the teens,
yeah,
all bets are off. It's really hard to tell what's going to survive that kind of weather.
It's kind of a common thread when you're buying any type of plants that, it's much better to buy plants that were reared in your local area, not buying them from, if you buy something that was raised in, like you said, Sarasota or Fort Myers or something.
Yeah.
It may not be equipped to deal with the conditions here. And that the same goes, don't buy something from Pensacola. If it's already on the border, it's not the best way to, and support your local nurseries, that type of thing.
Yeah, I had a customer this morning that had problems with arborvitae, and he had a fungal infection and pretty much wiped out several of the trees. He planted them as a windbreak, and he's had out of 20 some trees, 5 of them have died, and 3 or 4 of them now are almost dead. And it's a case of, the evergreen plants are plants that take cold weather to keep them hardy. So, as a general rule, half the people that plant those kind of things get some good results, but half the people that plant them end up with bad results. So, uh, arborvitae doesn't make a good break because you have problems associated with the fact that it's a plant in the wrong place. And Italian cypress, one guy,
Oh, yeah.
one person in the neighborhood has 2 beautiful trees at the entrance to their property, and the next guy has planted 36 of them, and they're all dead. So it's just hit or miss. As a general rule, do not plant any evergreen tree here. If it's a Christmas tree look, it should be where you snow and cold weather, and they just do not stay healthy if they're in Florida. So
Yeah, southern red cedars do well in this area, but pretty much all the other evergreens, and you can plant them, and it may do well for a number of years. It's just really long term. They always seem to die from something. They'll have problems with spider mites, with a fungus. What kills them frequently, usually by the end of summer, if we've had a rainy summer, we'll always get calls and pictures of a couple that have just died from random root rots, because if they get too much water, soil's too wet, that's going to kill them also. So the Italian cypress kills me. A lot of subdivisions and people will put them in, and we can go and find a couple that look beautiful, but it's like maybe 1 out of every 10 or 20 or 30 is going to do great. All the rest of them are going to die.
yeah, the red cedar, the southern red cedar, is a native. It's had hundreds of years to solve all those problems of being in the South. But, that's a here plant. All the rest of those things came from there. And planting theirs here doesn't really work. The lilacs that you can't plant, all those things. And people really understand that when you say, can you plant a palm tree in Chicago? Oh, no, that wouldn't work. But can you plant something from Chicago and Florida? I don't see why not.
Catalog said I could.
Yeah.
Arizona cypress, it looks great. Why can't I grow? Arizona's hot, Florida's hot. What's the difference?
Yeah. About 85% humidity.
At least. Okay, we got a couple questions here. How's the best way to protect from the cold weather? Bags over it. Generally sheets and blankets. Cloth is going to be the softest and best on a plant. You really don't want to use plastic sheeting or plastic bags. For small plants, you could set a bucket, a trash can. I have a couple extra recycling bins that for small plants, you set the recycling bin, put a towel over it, put the recycling bin on top of it, kept it warm, did just fine.
Remember, what you're actually doing is you're using the heat from the ground to protect the plant. If you wrap the plant like a lollipop, the plants don't produce any heat. That does absolutely nothing. What you want to do is create a tent so the heat from the ground is surrounding the plant and providing the I don't know, the temperature that you need to keep it from freezing. I had a neighbor that lollipopped her entire landscape, and I went over and I tried to explain to her that that was not going to work. and she lost every plant. So and it was sad because she was going to lose some of them. There wasn't anything around that. But if they had tented, they had a certain number of sheets and covers that were big enough to build tents. They could have protected about half of the plant. So when you see these people that have got a lot of lollipops in their yard, they have totally wasted their effort and done nothing to protect the plant.
Okay, we got a question from Lydia about where you can buy the peach trees that are bred by University of Florida for Central Florida. That's a very good question. And if Teresa can find the University of Florida publication peach tree varieties, that tells you what variety you're going to look for, what's going to do well in the part of Florida you live in. If you look online, the University of Florida licenses nurseries to be able to grow them and sell them. And there's pretty much every nursery in the country. If you want to buy something and have them ship it to you, they'll ship it to you.
As a general rule, if you want a plant for a specific reason and you want it to last a long period of time, your best bet is to buy it from an actual nursery. We have several nurseries in the county that provide plants that are optimized for the county. And they have to do that because in order for them to stay in business, they can't just sell you anything. So remember, when you buy a plant at one of the big box stores, the big box store bought 1 million. Part of them are in Miami, part of them are here, and part of them are up in Tallahassee. And one of those places is the right spot for the plant, but the other two aren't. So, if you want to buy a fruit tree, especially like a peach tree, buy it from a nursery. It requires a specific number of chill hours. We normally have around 300 chill hours here, but if you want to make sure that you're always going to get peaches, buy a low chill hour plant, a medium chill hour plant, and a little higher, maybe a 350 chill hour, a 250 chill hour, and either a 175 or a 400 chill hour. One of those plants every year is going to produce good fruit. So
yeah,
it seems silly, but if you're not commercially in the business, if you're just growing peaches because you want really good peaches, there's a range. If you cannot tell how many hours how many chill hours we're going to get. That's hours below 45 degrees. So if you have a spread, you almost always get peaches, and peaches do extremely well here. They tend to be really great juicy peaches. If you go out and reduce the number of fruit when they're about the size of your thumbnail, so that you only have about half the actual number of peaches. They grow good size, really good quality, and the local nurseries can supply you with plants or get these plants for you with the right number of chill hours. Whereas you go to one of the big box stores, what they have is what they have. So.
Yep, and it may not be the best variety for the part of Florida that you live in.
If you want a house plant, obviously you can't beat the price of the big box stores. So the local nurseries, for the most part, don't sell house plants. But when you go and you buy a plant and it's beautiful and all it says is foliage, and nobody's ever seen anything like that, you've got a plant that is hard to describe. And the one thing I would appreciate is please don't bring foliage plants, these things that are one of a kind, in for identification, because I can't do it. We send a picture to the university, and the university amazingly comes back and says that's a Ethiopian dotterberry, and God, he said there's probably 7 of them in the whole world, and you've got one. So I don't know how those guys do it, but they have really got it down to a science of being able to identify weird things.
Okay, Alessandra asks, or what Alessandra did was she planted Tithonia, or Mexican sunflower, around their soon to be finished vegetable garden as a green manure to increase the nutrients in the soil. What's your experience with Tithonia? It's I'm not familiar with it being used as a green manure. There are a lot of different various plants that you can grow as a cover crop or green manure, and UF has a lot of information about the ones that do well in the summer, the ones that do well in the winter, that you can grow, chop down, basically turn into the soil, and as it breaks down, it adds nutrients to the soil. But
Yeah,
all depending on exactly what. And Tithonia is a kind of a catch-all name. There's probably a lot of specific plants that kind of fall under the common name, just Tithonia. The Tithonia diversifolia is highly invasive and spreads like crazy. So
it's one of those where I'm not even sure that it's state listed, but it's listed by UF. But what's funny as well is that it is still recommended. There's mixed information in the FFL program. It's recommended as a butterfly plant. It's an annual, so it's like, but let's see. The one that FFL has listed is rotundiflora. Like you said, there's a bunch of different Tithonias. They're all called Mexican sunflower.
yeah.
But I do know that from what I know about it, it's a really good, pollinator attractor. They tend to like it, but you have to be considerate of your variety because some of them are. I know that we treat it at Swift Mud from time to time, but it is an annual, so it may die.
Apparently, Alessandra's using the perennial.
Do you know? So that's diversifolia. I think that's the one that they say is is the one that's an issue, if I remember correctly.
That could be. Yeah, diversifolia is the one that's considered to be highly invasive, and we do not recommend planting it. Like I said, University of Florida has a lot. There's a lot of different things that you can grow as a green manure or cover crop to naturally grow, chop down, chop up, work into the soil to help build up your soil and add nutrients and organic matter. You just don't want to use anything invasive. But I know that even depending on where in Florida you live, you have to be careful with some of those cover crop and green manure crops because some of them can become invasive. Some of the clovers, clovers aren't that big of a problem. Some of the other ones that if you have to chop them down and turn them under at the right time, if you let them flower and set seed, you'll never get rid of them.
I wonder what color Alessandra's plant is. Because I know that the FFL one, the one that they say is good, is normally orange. It's orange or more red, and I think the invasive one's yellow. All the ones we ever sprayed at Swift Mud were yellow.
And no, Tithonia is different from Mexican petunia. Mexican petunia is another one that could be problematic.
Mm-hmm.
Old varieties of Mexican petunia are highly invasive. People will like weed and clean out their flower beds, take that stuff across the street to the woods, chuck it in the woods, and now you have Mexican petunias along with a lot of other invasive things that are commonly in landscapes all running through the woods.
Yeah, those Mexican petunias we actually saw those way more than the sunflowers.
I'm sure you saw a lot of camphors too. If you go for a hike in the
buddy.
woods, you will see camphors, and they're not native.
No. Well, those the campers because they'll get really big. They can be huge, and then
Mhm.
those are very what is it? It's very labor intensive to get rid of the big ones and the small ones. It's all.
Yeah. Well, the big ones people will have as landscape trees in their yard,
Mm-hmm.
shade trees, and they have tree services come and limb them up. They always have co-dominant stems.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen them like with literally, 10 main trunks,
Mm-hmm.
any of which could rip. And
But
this one falls on your
they're pretty
car, this
trees.
one falls on your house. It's an effective shade tree. It does produce shade. They
I,
make they make those berries, and that's where the problem is. Birds
mm-hmm.
eat the berries and poop them in the woods. And now you have campers throughout wooded areas and wild areas where you really don't
And
want them.
there's a lot of those invasive trees, and that's why sometimes that they're so common is because they can be very, very aesthetically pleasing, very pretty trees. I've seen some of those Chinese tallows that look nice, or those big when people have it's a really old pepper tree that they've has been coaxed into being a tree and not just
Uh-huh.
a massive hulk of stems that they look nice, but and people are like, well, I can't get rid of my tree that I've had for 40 years, and it's like, well, your tree has become an issue for everybody in
Yeah.
a 10-mile radius, so you ought to get rid of it.
Yeah, those Chinese tallow trees. I had a neighbor once before in Deltona, and we had a hurricane, and they had one in their backyard, and the hurricane beat the heck out of it, broke all. It wasn't really huge. It was maybe as tall as the house.
Hmm.
Broke all the branches. All the branches were snapped off. They were all rough and jagged. Blew every last leaf off of it. It was nothing but a trunk and broken branches sticking out of it. Oh my God, a few weeks later,
Hmm.
flushed back out with new
Yeah, I was
growth.
about to say, how long did it take before you
Later,
couldn't
and
tell?
covered up the horribly jagged branches and like didn't care. Came right back, bigger and badder than ever.
Very common growth pattern with invasive plants. That like subsect of those type of invasive trees that grow like that are just they're awful, and it's really difficult they're very labor intensive, very man hour intensive on getting good control of them if you have a pretty bad infestation, and that's why even if you have some 40-year-old beautiful Brazilian pepper tree, that's why you got to get rid of it. I see it down. I've My fiance's family, they're all from Sarasota, Venice area, so we'll
Oh,
go down there, and I'm driving, and it's like you see a lot that hasn't been cleared. That is just a mass of Brazilian pepper tree. Like you couldn't walk through it. It's so bad. And you'll see a few of those, and then you'll see right, somebody has a landscape one nice planted, maintained in the middle of their yard, and
uh-huh.
it's like, well, I wonder where all this came from. But you couldn't tell them. You couldn't tell them to get rid of it.
Yeah, drive down I-75 or Veterans Memorial in December when all the red berries are out on the Brazilian pepper. That's all you see alongside of the highway medians. They're
Mm-hmm.
packed with it down there.
For those of you local to Hernando County, if you're curious about what they look like, if you may be able to see them in the preserve. Those guys take the Wiki Wachi or Arapika Sandhills. Um, those guys work really hard to take care of them, but there's only so many people that can do it. So you'll see one every now and again, some red berries there. If you're curious about what they look like.
Yeah, and I know that they flower in the fall and they get the berries in December because it was originally brought to Florida and used as a landscape plant,
Mm-hmm.
and it was called Christmas berry
Mm-hmm.
because it would have the nice berries that look like holly berries for Christmas. So, like, hey, we live in Florida and we can have holly berries and make the little wreath and everything too, like they do up north.
It's a member of the poison ivy family. Some people can be affected by.
Yeah.
It breaks me out in hives if I get the broken stems or the leaves brushing up against me too much. I'll get like a reaction to it. Um,
Oh.
Typically, because like I said, it's really labor intensive. Not everybody gets that. I mean, I don't think it's going to jump out and get you, but I'm sensitive to poison ivy. But they normally you treat them in the winter. One, because it's not so hot and they're very labor intensive, but two,
Mhm.
uh, it's they're easy to see. So it's like you see, oh, a big hulking mess of berries. Sweet,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
where we
they
need to
stick
go.
out. Okay, guys, if anybody has any last minute questions, we need to wrap it up shortly here. This last link here, if you go to it, takes you to Colby's information. So what kind of information you got on that link tree there, Colby?
So right now, let's see. I believe that there's a wait list right now for the rain barrel compost bin classes because we have one of those Monday, but it got full very quickly. So if you are interested, if you're an Hernando County resident, if you're interested in rain barrel or compost bin here, uh, classes given by myself and Dr. Lester, you can sign up for the wait list there. I've never had anyone sign up for the wait list and not fit into the next one. So it's a pretty good guaranteed way. I know you can sign up right now and be guaranteed to get access to the next one. Um, and we I know that typically these are in the morning on weekdays. In October, if you're someone who works during the week, we are doing a evening workshop. So be on the lookout for that. You can sign up for the wait list for that one too. I sent an email and you can just tell me, oh, I want the one in October, and I'll keep you there. So sign up for that. I have some general FFL information, our plant guide. The PDF of the FFL plant guide is located there, and also any other thing that I have going on. So there's nothing right this second, but soon you'll see if I ever do class at the library or in January when our water awareness speaker series starts back up, we will have all that information will be there. So I update it almost every day. Anytime something changes, it's immediately put on there.
And of course, we encourage everybody to follow us on Facebook because whatever we're doing, it gets tossed on Facebook. We make Facebook event, we make Facebook posts, we boost our posts on Facebook, all except for those 10 or 12, I'm not even sure how many we have left, Australian finger limes. That, for right now, for the next week, is a private sale for all of you who are kind enough to join us live or watch the recorded version pretty shortly after it goes up. Because I know we get a lot of views on this as a recorded presentation, which is great. So I see Diana is on here. Diana, you're very welcome. Hope you stop by for a very, very thorny and sharp Australian finger lime tree. And we'll take one last question here from Anne. Do you know anything about wild onions? I heard seeds spread, making lawns hard to mow once the stems are mature. I know that there is such a thing as wild onions, and it could be a lawn weed, which means that you're going to find it in somebody's lawn and it's not the turf grass, which makes it a weed. Obviously, any plant, if you let it get to the point where it flowers and sets seeds, it's going to spread seeds. I would not think that it's hard to mow once the stems are mature. And if you're keeping your lawn mowed on a fairly regular basis, it's not going to get to the point where the stems are going to be thick and difficult to cut when it matures. Bernie, any ideas on wild onions?
No, haven't heard that. One thing you might think of if you have a Bahia lawn, right now they're wanting to set seed. If you can, let it sit for 2 weeks before you mow it. It depends on where you live, whether your neighbors will let you get by with it or not. But save you some money on seed. It needs to reseed itself at least once a year. So
yeah,
if you can do that once a year, you can maintain your lawn.
I'm on about day 18 of my seed heads up and trying to be like, all right, we gotta let it go. It's get off work. It's hot outside.
I got a neighbor who I get, Bernie, you probably be proud of him because he does that several times a year. The guy, he'll grudgingly cut that lawn once a month, maybe, probably after getting a letter from code enforcement. But I mean, what he has going on in his yard gets literally waist high before he's out there grinding it down with a little push mower.
Oh, well, no wonder. You know, if you're going to use a push mower, you either need to mow it every day or never. I don't blame you.
And Diana points out that she listens to us on YouTube because we are live on YouTube and on Facebook. And with that, on this note, Teresa put up a fact sheet here. That wild onion is Allium canadense, also known as meadow garlic. So there are like wild garlic, wild onion, people who are into eating the native plants or foraging and things like that. Many of them are edible and going to taste just like onion, just like garlic. You know, the ones that we grow commercially for ourselves came from somewhere. We developed it from a native plant. So looks like we're pretty much on time. So I think we're going to wrap it up for today. So hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining us and asking us so many questions today. And let me double check on my calendar here. Hey, I'm going to be here next week. And hopefully Colby and Bernie will be here next week also. So we should all be here next week. And hopefully all of you will come back and join us again next week. So until then, everybody enjoy working in your garden. Watch out for the heat. Stay hydrated. And if you have any questions, shoot me an email, Colby an email, or just save it up for next Thursday at 10 a.m. so that you can ask it live. And we'll do our best to answer it. So until then, everybody, thank you so much. Have a great week. Bye.
Bye.